Thank you all for joining me this evening and spending part of your evening watching my demo. I'm honored to have been asked to do this demo and to do a two-day workshop in September at convention. I also want to give a shout out to the Visual Arts Center of Punta Gorda, who's helping me with this recording. I'm using their Zoom link. They're recording it for me, so thank you back. I'm Beverly Yankwit, and I'm an abstract artist. And the kind of abstract work that I do is non-objective. And that means that there's nothing realistic about it. I don't have any photo reference. It's just all out of my head. And I just respond to what I see happening on the paper. And that's why I like abstract, because it's always different. You just never know where it's going to go. But I think that in the workshop, we're going to try to, well, I like my work to be energetic, to be free. So that's why I never have a plan that I start with, because when I do, it makes me feel I get very tight, and I'm never happy with it. So I just like to start without a plan and have it fresh and energetic. And I think we're going to try to strive for that in the workshop as well. The first day, I'll be working with making prints on a jelly plate, and we will use those, tear those up and use them as collage in our paintings. And then the second day, we'll be concentrating on value hierarchy and color strategies, because to me, abstract art is about color, especially, and value. And if you can master those two things, you have a much stronger painting. So that's something that I try to keep in mind all the time, is my value hierarchy and my colors. So let me put my iPad down so you can see my table and I can talk about the tools that I use. Okay, so I work on a flat surface. This is a drafting table that can be raised to different levels, but I like it flat. And this is 140-pound watercolor paper, and this one is Saunders Waterford paper. It's very smooth. It doesn't have any tooth. And that's what I like. I find it easier to move paint around on a very smooth surface. The paper itself, the brand of paper, doesn't matter to me. It's just that because I've tried all of them, to me it's all the same, but I do like hot press. I do like that smooth surface. I usually work on a full sheet of watercolor paper, but today, because of time constraints, I'm working on a half a sheet. I work in acrylic paint, and usually I work with golden fluid acrylics. That's what this is. I also have some Nova paint, and the Nova paint, this is a soft body paint. I believe Golden also makes a soft body paint. And it's somewhere between the heavy body paint that you get in a tube and the fluid acrylics. So I use it once in a while. I pulled this out. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it today or not. I might. For my white, I use white gesso, because I buy a big gallon container of Cheap Joe's gesso. It's nice and creamy and thick, and it's a lot less expensive than using a lot of white acrylic paint. My palette is just freezer paper, because I can tear out as big of a piece as I want. I like to have a lot of space where I can mix my paint. And then one perk, I guess, of freezer paper is that after the paint dries on there, you can scrape it off. It will peel right off, and you can use it as acrylic skins, as collage in a painting if you want. I usually start out with mark making, and I have a lot of different things for mark making. but this is Krink. It's called Krink, and it's a black ink. This is just a golden high flow, and it's carbon black. This is a Posca pen. Posca pens are filled with acrylic ink, acrylic paint, and this is also black. And this is a Pitt pen, and Pitt pens, I believe, are ink-based. And this is just an acrylic marker. I don't usually paint with brushes. I mostly use wedges. This is a Catalyst wedge, and this can be purchased from online art supply stores. I probably got this from Cheap Joe's. This is a Messermeister bowl scraper that I got off of Amazon. It's probably my favorite. As you can see, they're a little bit flexible on the tip of them, and so it makes it easy to paint with. And this is a silicone wedge, and it's just like a paintbrush, except that the wedge of the tip of it is not a brush, not bristles, but a wedge, a silicone wedge. So that's what I mostly paint with. I do have a few brushes. I use brushes, and this is probably one of my favorite. It's 1.5 inches, but don't ask me what kind it is because it is covered up with paint. I've had it for a long time, but I use brushes if I'm going to do glazing. So I use them for glazing, or maybe just for playing around, making marks or something like that. So I'm going to get started, and I always start with mark making. And these things that I've chosen here to make my marks with will all be permanent once they're dry. You have to be careful not to use water-soluble markers in the first stage, because when you add your paint, they're going to lift and mix with your paint, and then it's going to get muddy. So I don't want to start out with muddy paint. I mean, it can always be covered up, but I just don't like to start out that way. So I use permanent markers. So this Krink has like a dauber, almost like a bingo dauber, I guess, but it makes a nice thick mark. And this high flow is very watery, very runny, but it's acrylic as well. So I'm just going to put this on. I'll probably have to take some of that off because it's not going to dry. And the Posca pen just makes a thinner line. Of acrylic paint. And the Pitt pen, the same thinner line. And this little guy makes even a thinner line. So in the end, you're probably thinking, what is she doing? But in the end, most of this will not show. It will be gone. So this is deli paper, and I'm going to lift up some of this high intensity, this high flow black paint, because it's never going to dry. And I'm pressing down on it, so the paint is like turning into big blobs here. That's okay. So this now can make an interesting piece of collage paper. And I like to use deli paper for collage because it's translucent. When you lay it down, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see through it, and it kind of just disappears into your painting. I like my collage pieces to feel like they are part of the painting and not just stuck on there. So I want to try to hide the edges, and I don't want anything I want the, nothing showing except the collage that I have on there. The design that I have on there, I guess I should say. Just trying to pick up all that wet paint, and I think now it's pretty dry. A few wet places, but for the most part, it's pretty dry. So I said that I don't start with the plan, but I do start with an intention. And that intention could be anything from I'm going to do an abstract landscape, or this is going to be a high key painting, or this is going to be about intensity of color. So I always start with an intention, and I always choose my palette before I start. So today my intention is that this is going to be probably, I'm going to try for a low-key painting. We'll see whether I get there or not, but that's where I'm going to try for a low-key painting where the dark values are the dominant values, and then you have some lights and darks. The palette that I chose is Permanent Green, Light, Phthalo Turquoise, Phthalo Blue. These are 3 analogous colors on the color wheel: green, blue-green, and blue. So I use 2 or 3 analogous colors on the color wheel, plus their complement, the complement of green, which is this red. This is a quinacridone red. And then I have this Nova Phthalo, and it's really, they're both phthalo turquoise, but the colors are so different. So I just might mix them. If I want this to be a little lighter, I just might mix it with a little bit of this lighter phthalo turquoise, just to lighten it up a little bit. So I usually like to start with my lightest color, and that is the ones that I chose is the Permanent Green. I'm just gonna squeeze that on right onto my paper and get my wedge and just kind of move it around. This Permanent Green is pretty kind of almost, I don't really like this color. It's pretty much like St. Patrick's Day. Got a little lot, I've got probably more in here than what I wanted. All right, so then after I do that step, I turn my paper 90 degrees because that helps me with the balance of it, and it keeps me from doing everything in the same direction, because you tend to make your strokes the same way. So that's why when I turn it, it keeps me from doing that. So if I'm doing a low-key painting, then I want to start with my lights. You start the opposite of what you want to end up. So if this is going to be a low-key painting, then I want to start with lights. But I like to put some pure color on just because at the beginning, because you can't ever get that back again, that pure color on the white paper. Even you're just not going to, once your paper is covered, you're not going to be able to get that pure color back again. So now I'm going to just add a little bit of red. So this first stage of the painting is the play stage. So in the play stage, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, where I'm putting things. I'm just trying to get paint on the paper. I'm just trying to build up interest on the paper. And I'm just using pure colors. And then the next step will be to edit the editing stage. And that's when I'm going to use gray back my colors and use the gray back colors to edit it. So this is the turquoise. I'm just putting some of this on some places. Really starting out with darks, I probably should go high key instead of low key, because these are really dark. All these colors I picked are pretty dark. The only thing in the play stage that I'm kind of thinking about is that I want these colors to move around in the painting. I don't want like all the reds down here, all the greens up there. I want them distributed around the painting. That helps with the balance of the painting. It helps with moving your eye around the painting. The elements of design are really important when it comes to abstract art, because without a good design and good color use and value, it just doesn't hold together as a painting, because there's nothing there to look at to say, yes, I see that's some flowers, or I see that's a portrait. It's not, there's nothing. So it has to have something to hold it together. And that is the design elements that do that. So even though my original intention was to go low key, I think I'm moving towards high key, because these are all really dark now. So I will come in and do my editing with light colors to take it to a low key painting, because to a high key painting where your light values are the dominant values. So in the play stage, because I want to build interest, I can do some stenciling here. I can get like a round brush. This is a 20 round, and just play with that. I'm going to start pouring out some of my paints on my palette now. So I'm going to get this brush, and I'm going to put it into this phthalo, this lighter phthalo from Nova, and just play with some circles. Some line work. Filling in some of these edges. Whoops, picked up green, but all right. Okay, turning my paper 90 degrees, and I think I'll add some stencils to it. I have this stencil that is Punchinella. It's what's left over when they punch out sequins, I think. This is just a store purchased stencil that just has a bunch of different size circles in it. And then this one, there's 4 different stencil patterns on here, but I'm going to use this one because these are 2 stencils that are curvilinear shapes, whereas this one is a rectilinear shape with the squares and rectangles. So this will be a contrast to this rectilinear will be a contrast to the curvilinear. So I'm just randomly going to put these on here, and I'm probably going to go a little bit lighter because it's already dark and you can't really see what. I won't be able to see them if I go too light, if I go too dark. So take my white and add maybe to the phthalo blue. I'll add some white to the phthalo blue. So all these colors that I put on here were all transparent colors or semi-transparent colors because you can still see some of the line work through there. But now that I'm going to be adding white, my white gesso to it, now I'm going to be making an opaque color. Let's see. Looking for my stencil brush. Okay. Right, so now I'll use some Punchinella. Just going to stick with the same color. I like to put them on when I do stenciling or collage, anything like that. I like to put them on in 3 places that make a triangle because it moves your eye around in the painting when you do that. And then I'll try this one. Maybe I'll make this one in a different color. So I think I'll get the green, a permanent green, and add some white to the permanent green. And there's still a little bit of blue on my stencil brush, so might be a little bluish green. paint on here is a little thick and still wet, so I'm just kind of smoothing it out a little bit. Okay, so probably enough stencils. So in the end, most of this is not going to end up showing, but you have to start with some interest. You've got to build the interest first. So you have something to work with, something to leave in the end that's interesting to look at. I'm thinking maybe I'll add some more marks with the Posca pen. I've lost a lot of some of them are showing, but because this paint is also dark, it's covered up a lot of them. Okay, so once I get the whole paper covered with paint, then I have to put it up on the wall and look and get like about 4 or 5 feet away from it and look at it, because just looking down on it like this, I can't really see where I'm at. I need to check for value. I need to check for balance. And then I need to look at it because now I'll be moving out of the play stage into the editing stage. And I have to look at it and see, what do I want to keep? What areas are interesting? What areas are not interesting? What do I want to cover up? And so it's hard to just look at it laying down like this flat. I like to put it up and look at it. I just wanted to cover up this white spot there. A little bit more red. I like the pure reds. I like where this little bit of red is peeking out around this, underneath of that green, and under here. So now I have to decide what I want to get rid of. And to edit now, because I've decided now this is dark, I'm going to go for high key, because you do the opposite of what you've got. So to edit, because these are all pure values that are on here, colors that are on here now, to edit, I'm going to gray them back and lighten them, because I'm going for high key. Also, I have to decide, is this going to be about blues and greens, or is it going to be about the red, to complement the red? And first of all, when I add white to the red, it gets pinkish. So and I already have a lot of blues and greens. So I think it's going to be mostly about blues and greens, and then the red will be just the subordinate color in there. So I'm going to start with, I think, the phthalo blue. That's what I used to make these, I think. And I'm just going to add white to it. And now I want to start graying back my colors a little bit. Got to get rid of all these pure colors. So to gray that back, I'll add a little bit of red, which is the complement. Well, the complement of the greens, and it'll be fine as a complement to gray back the blue as well, and the turquoise. But just tapping you don't need very much. A little bit goes a long way. Just tapping the end of my palette knife in there into the red and mixing it into this blue. So now you can see it's already dulled that blue down. Make it a little bit lighter. And Probably need to go lighter. Just a little bit more gray back. Okay, so pick up my wedge and just start putting some paint on. This is pretty dark over here, so I usually just start in a corner. Start over here. You can't let anything get too precious because sometimes it has to go. Of course, I don't want this much stenciling on there. So some of that stenciling has got to go. With these wedges, you can do this and scrape back and take paint off so that it makes kind of a veil over your work. I like that little green spot there, so I'm going to leave that. Maybe I'll leave some of that stencil show just like that, but pushed back. And then the other thing I like to do is with the tip of my palette knife, just come in here and make some line work. Whoops. Let's put the tip of this into the turquoise. Now I got a big blob of turquoise here, but it's okay. Just push it in there. I'll leave just a little bit of that showing. I like to, sometimes I like to blend my edges so that it makes a smoother transition from one color to the other or one value to the next. So just spray a little bit of water on it, get a paper towel, and just do this to rub that in and make a smoother transition. And I can do that over here maybe if this isn't too dry already. You have to get it before it dries. And with acrylic paint dries pretty fast. So I'm putting it here, so I feel like I need to put some down here. Again, I'm gonna use my paper towel. Make a smoother transition here. Put some line work through there. And my paper 90 degrees. See what I have here. So I'm thinking that if right now I have darks and I have midtones. I don't really have lights yet. So this blue is going to have to get lighter. taking the same blue that I was using, but just adding a lot more light to it. Putting this on, and I'm just gonna another way that you can do a smoother transition is to take some of the color underneath and work that into the white that I just put on here. So that it blends it a little bit. And I can put more white on, or light. It's not really white, it's a little bit bluish color. Blending that into the blue. If I want a hard edge, I can take my wedge and just go like this, make a hard edge there. So I don't want to surround this. I don't want to surround it with the lights. And I don't want it all to be blue. So I think I'll get some of this green, the light green like this, but I'll gray it back a little bit with adding a little bit of red to it. And I'm going to make this light. A lot of gesso. And a little bit of red. Whoops, that might have been too much red. Now it's more red than green. Well, it's really kind of gray. Gray. I'll put a little more green in it. So this is a grayed back green now. And probably right here. I'm going to save this red. I'm going to save some of that. And some of that. So your painting has a conversation going on. And the loud conversation is where you have the highest contrast in value, the highest contrast in color, the highest contrast in shapes. The quiet conversation is more of a subtle change in value and in shape. So the highest conversation should be in here moving out. And the quiet conversation should be around the edges moving in, so that you're drawing the viewer's eye into the painting and they're staying in here looking at it and not hanging out around the edges, because that's not where you want them to look. You don't want them to find something really interesting at the edge of your paper and then they just go out of the painting. So that's what I'm trying to get here, is bringing in the quiet conversation, which is a more subtle change in value, a more subtle change in intensity, and having the more higher contrast inside of the painting. Okay, so now that I have started to do some editing, I have to put it up and look at it again, so to see where I'm at with it. And when I put it up, I turn it in all four directions because it helps me to see where it's weak, maybe where it's not balanced, and maybe where there's something that there's nothing going on that needs more interest. So I turn it in all four directions to look at it. And like I said, I'm checking now for value, I'm checking for balance, I'm checking, is there enough interest in it? Did I lose all my stuff that was happening there? And what do I need to do to it next? So I see that I have this really weird shape here, not too much happening over here. And I need to bring, this is like the same thing. So I've got to bring something out over here. So I can do that by bringing in maybe some some more pure color back into here. Let me just see. Let me just try to put some more green into this. I have some green here, so I'm just going to take this green and mix up a little bit. A little bit red into it. I'm going to break this up a little bit with this, and so there wasn't a whole lot going on up here. So I think I'm going to, there's different options. I could put collage up here. I could put more stenciling up here, but I feel like I've got enough stenciling, maybe too much at this point. So, another thing that I like to do is with a piece of deli paper, and maybe I'll do it in the red, get do a print from deli paper. So just going to put some colors, some shape on here. Take the yellow paper and pick up the excess paint. Okay, it doesn't look quite light enough, so adding a lot more white to the green areas. I want this to be high key. It's definitely not high key yet. Some white to the blue too. Pushing back a little bit of this red that I printed on there because a little much. I think where I added this green, I'm just going to take it green all the way off with a much lighter green. Mixing up a very light blue. Put right in here. I'm not liking this area. I'm not liking this here. So I'll just get blue. Go right down. White in it. And I need to do something here, so I just bring some white, maybe some turquoise, dark. Now I'm adding a little bit of this turquoise, but very back turquoise. This part. I don't really like this, so I think I'll mix up some more dark, mixing all my colors together, getting it dark. And this is just the Nova Phthalo that I'm using right out of the jar here. A little lighter. And this gray. Kind of blend that in a little bit. This color over here feels really dull to me. I like that green color, so transitioning this into a little bit darker blue because this is darker down at the bottom. What I see is that this side is all blue, this side is all green. And so I'm going to make it about the blue, so I'm going to bring more blue over here. Can't be half and half. And leave a little bit of the green. But it's mostly going to be I don't like this right here, so I think what I might do is get my stencil. And it's just going to be the Punchinella. I'm going to get this dark red and try to move that into here to break that up. So I think the dark red was probably the red with the green. Maybe a very dark red. I think this will work. So I just want to start it this where this may not go down into those holes. All right, I'll just use my regular brush here. I'm going to start it where it's already that dark color and move it down into here. so that it looks like it's this background moving into this kind of transitions the background into the foreground a little bit. Take another look. When I get to this point in a painting, everything that you put on here is going to change something. You know, it could throw the balance off, it could throw the other shapes around it off. So every time I do something at this stage, I have to put it up and look at it to see, did that help? Maybe it didn't help. Do I like it? Maybe I don't like it. And did it affect something else? Do I have to change something else now because I put that there? So I have to get away from it and look at it to see. Okay, so I think I'm going to do one more thing to it, and that's going to be some acidic writing. And I think I'll use this Pitt pen. This is good. Here we are, the tip on it. Acidic writing, if you don't know, is where you write, you make line work and it looks like writing, but it's not writing. It's just, it doesn't really say anything. So this is a silver. This is the Sennelier 3D liner. It's filled with acrylic paint, and it has a nice tip on it so that you can write with it. So this is gray. I don't have black, so I'll just go with the gray. Or let's see, I could go with red. I do have a red one. Maybe instead of the gray, I'll go with the red one. I'm just going to start here. As though I'm writing something on here. It's called 3D because when you put it on, it's a little puffy, but really as it dries, it kind of flattens out. But usually this is the last thing I add because it's takes a while to dry. And I like to just use it so that just to add a final line work. So I'm not sure if this is done, but I know that our time is up. And what I'll do with it now is put it up. I get far away from it, like probably 20, 30 feet away from it, look at it, and at that distance, the only thing that I can see are value, shapes, color. I can't see any of the other little details in it. So because that's the only thing I can see, it lets me know is the balance okay? Are there any shapes that are weird looking? Is the value okay? Do I have enough value in it? And then I'll take a picture of it, convert it to black and white. I'm not sure that this really turned out to be high key. It's probably not quite light enough yet, but if I like it and it didn't get to be high key, then I'll just keep it. But probably at this point, there aren't a lot of changes that I need to make, probably little tweaks here and there. But I have to look at it for a few days before I really decide. So anyway, I think that's it for now. And thank you all again